Welcome to Wayne's Word. Hey, we've got a little bit of a change up in our format here. We have with us George, the producer, and we have Cameron, the beautiful Cameron Laugesen. And with us is also my newest grandbaby, Eleanor Laugesen, who is with the beautiful Cameron Laugesen today. So, and we're going to get some of her opinions. We'll see what she has to say about things, right, Candace?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
I love it. That was an insult. Sorry, intended. No, I'm kidding. Okay. So anyway, last night in Colorado, I think a lot of Coloradans were glued to Channel 9 or watching it live on the internet. We had a Republican debate. And if anything speaks to the turmoil of Republican politics in Colorado, it was that debate. It was pretty much a clown show, and without much exception. And of course, it was hosted by 9 News' Kyle Clark. I don't know. I thought the debate was silly from the start and all the way through. These candidates, we had Victor Marx, of course, who we've had on the show. Perfectly nice man. I kind of like him personally, but he's running with these just outlandish stories, which even if they're true, it's not the kind of thing you go through life talking about, and you shouldn't be running for office on the basis that you claim you killed someone when you were 7 years old and you had to kill a cat for the same person who forced you to kill an adult, forced you to kill a cat, wear the cat on your head. Just some really extraordinary claims coming from this man. And then you have Barbara Kirkmeyer, who is State Senator Barbara Kirkmeyer. She represents Broomfield, Larimer, Weld counties. She's her district is the outskirts of Fort Collins and Greeley. Think of it that way. And Scott Bottoms, House District 15 in Colorado Springs. That's the northern part of the city. That's Cimarron Hills, basically. So it's a pretty important district. Well, all districts are important. But what I saw were 3 relatively feckless candidates without a clear message as to why they were running. I need to, if I'm not a Republican or a Democrat and I'm just one of the majority in Colorado, an unaffiliated voter, I need to know what I'm going to get if I elect you. Am I going to get better roads? Am I going to get better? We're the second most dangerous state in the country, according to U.S. News and World Report. Am I going to get better public safety? Am I going to get a return of my Second Amendment rights? Are we going to reduce taxes and fees? And none of this focused on, mostly the debate focused on a whole lot of esoteric political stuff that nobody cares about, or the stories that Victor Marx tells about himself and whether they're true. I mean, really, who cares about any of this? Victor Marx, those stories may or may not be true. But we are entering an era in politics where you don't have to be, it used to be 20 years ago, you had to be this sort of perfect person who didn't have too many speeding tickets, let alone a DUI or any sort of serious legal problems from the past. Those days are gone. Okay. Nobody cares. Graham Plattner could well be elected as a United States Senator. And this is a man who says in writing that he joined the Marines because he wanted to kill people.
You wrote, "Wartime was a hell of an awesome experience. I would do it again in a heartbeat."
Yep.
Combat was a really fulfilling experience. It's hard to explain how much I enjoyed combat. It's both physically and intellectually challenging. That war, I think you're referring to Iraq, that war was the most enjoyable experience of my life. I enjoyed the hell out of fighting in Afghanistan. And then finally, in 2020, you wrote under the banner, "Why did you enlist in the Marines?" You wrote, "I wanted to have an adventure and kill some people."
I'll talk more about Graham Plattner a little bit, but I want to hear from you guys. What were your thoughts on the debate? We watched it together.
Yeah, I mean, I think Victor came in with a lot to prove after that, what I think was a disastrous interview with Kyle Clark. where I mean, frankly, I was kind of a fan of Victor Marx, but after seeing the episode or the interview with Kyle Clark, he just came out of that looking like kind of like a fraud to me, honestly.
I agree, and I thought it's easy to make someone look like a fraud when they make these kinds of claims about their background. Like I'm saying, even if they're true, they sound fraudulent. He needs to knock it off. We had him on our show, like I said, perfectly nice gentleman. I think his heart's in the right place. He could actually be a viable candidate if he would just focus on some issues, like the guy who's running for mayor out in L.A., that's Spencer Pratt, right? It's a reality star. I think that guy could win because he's telling voters exactly what they might get from him. Less crime, less homelessness, water in the reservoirs so we can put out fires when they start burning half the city down. That kind of thing. That's what none of these candidates last night came out of that debate with a clear message, with a clear platform telling us what we would get. It would be so simple for anyone to do that if they really cared about the issues that Coloradans care about. So I don't think the Republicans have a viable candidate. And they're going to, and for that reason, we're going to have either Attorney General Phil Weiser or United States Senator Michael Bennet as governor of Colorado. And either of those are going to be disastrous for us. Cameron, what did you think about the debate?
I kind of had the same opinion as George because the first time that I met him was when he was originally on here. How
long ago was that when we had Victor on? That was
I think it was like October. I'll pull it up here.
Yeah, it was shortly after he announced, and he announced with some fanfare and what seemed to be credible support. He had
and I liked him too. I thought that he was like genuine and of course like very nice and stuff like that. But as soon as because George and I watched the interview that
we posted our interview 5 months ago.
Yeah.
So it would have been
and we had a fun discussion. He was brand new into the campaign at that point, and I wanted to discuss with him some of these what seem like fairy tales that he tells about himself. I also didn't want to invite him into my podcast studio just as he enters the race and start scrutinizing him to the hilt and showing me documentation of all of these claims. Going to let the viewer assess him and how he presented those claims, and he did a fairly good job. But I came out of the interview liking him but not believing him on a number of things.
That was my reaction too, and I was quite honestly like disappointed because I really liked him, and I thought that he had a really good shot of like going for it and like possibly winning. But yeah, with like all these crazy stories, I even like in the beginning when we did the podcast, I just was like, really? Like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Because they're just so like far-fetched and they're so out there to where I was like, geez.
I think even if he over-exaggerated his claims and he had kind of a messy background, and I think all of that could have been excused if he had a plan in place, which is what is so appealing about Spencer Pratt. He's done multiple videos. He puts out a video almost every day, 5-10 minutes, and he's talking about, this is exactly how I'm going to fix the homeless problem.
Exactly.
This is exactly how I'm going to make sure we don't have another fire like we had in the past.
Yes.
And people really relate to that. And sure, and they try to throw him under for being this reality star at one point in his life, and that's just silly to me.
Like,
I mean,
which one are you talking about?
Spencer Pratt.
Oh, Spencer Pratt. Yeah, he's the reality star in LA.
But relating him to Victor Marx, I mean, Victor Marx in the same way is kind of like a podcast reality star, right? Like, and
very
he's
much
kind of grown this fiction around. I mean, I think it's probably more fiction than true. I think there's probably some truth in there.
I think there's a grain of truth to all of it. But I don't know, it shouldn't be what he spotlights as he runs for office. If he wants to spotlight his faith in God and how God has helped him through difficult times, including mental illness, I think that's all fine.
That's great.
But
yeah.
but
But it's
talking,
like-
I mean, that needs look. Spencer Pratt isn't running on the fact that he was a reality star. He's not running on anything having to do with his personal background.
Mm-mm.
And when you get Donald Trump elected as president of the United States, with all of his background problems, including stupid things he's said, like because I'm a star, I can grab a woman's pussy. That's just revolting. You would that 30 years ago, if that came out, you would be done the next day.
Yeah.
That would be, but because Trump went to voters with a specific platforms of things that he was going to do, nobody cares about the things that he says on the side, or the things he said or did before he was running for office.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the world we're in right now.
Yeah.
So I think, Victor Marx, probably not in Colorado. I don't think he's electable under any circumstance, but he could be taken very seriously as a candidate. He is in the lead, at least as of today,
Mm-hmm.
of this pack. He has more support than anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But he needs to now completely shift direction and just talk about 3 or 4 things he's going to do and how he's going to get them done.
Yeah, exactly.
And that would change the entire trajectory of his candidacy. And I would say that to the other two as well. Kirkmeyer is an extremely viable candidate. Again, her problem is she's running in Colorado, where it's very difficult to elect a Republican statewide under any circumstance. I mean, we might be able to elect, say, a John Elway if he were to run. He's never going to run. Everybody's always tried to get him to run. It's not going to happen. But Barbara Kirkmeyer doesn't have huge name recognition. What she does have is a lot of credibility, but I didn't hear a message. I need a message, not just credibility, which she does have, and she deserves it. She's been a good mainstream Republican. And what's going to hurt her if she were to get the nomination is something I really like about her is she's a no-holds-barred pro-life Republican. She's 100% pro-life. She cares about children, and especially those that are so vulnerable that they're not even born yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that about her.
I do too. I agree.
But it's going to hurt her in the general should she win the primary.
Right,
This is
just
the most
because it's
pro-abortion state in the
Colorado.
country.
Yeah.
Right. For some reason, Colorado has to be hostile to children. I don't get it. I just don't understand it.
Never understood it either. I think it's disgusting.
Well, let's talk a little more about that. Unless there's anything more you want to say about this. Do either of you have any further thoughts on the debate?
Are you familiar with the Liberty Scorecard?
Yeah,
Colorado?
yeah, sure.
So I just saw this posted on Twitter after the debate that Barbara Kirkmeyer has a score of 58 and Scott Bottoms has a score of 99. So
Wow.
depending on how seriously you take
And of course, Victor Marx doesn't have a score because he's
Right.
never voted on anything.
yeah, this only ranks representatives here in Colorado.
Tell us about the Liberty score. What are they measuring? What are they looking at?
Well, I can pull it over here on the screen.
Because with that score, the far right in Colorado, the base, the
Right.
hard right, is going to have no interest in someone like Barbara Kirkmeyer, because the Liberty score, I suspect, has to do with those issues most important to the base, which are a lot of social issues like abortion,
Mhm.
gun rights,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the things that don't really matter that much to the vast middle, the unaffiliated voter. They do care about gun rights. That's
Mhm.
not a left-right issue in Colorado.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes to everybody.
That's right. I
Yeah.
think mainstream Colorado is and always has been a very pro-Second Amendment environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's Kirkmeyer's voting record, and they give what she voted yes or no, the legislature, and then the principles that they.
So what are some of
against
the
her.
major issues that are bringing her score this low?
So I believe the red is votes that they have an issue with, and the greens are votes that they agree with.
Okay. So unlimited government, she has I don't get it. She has a yes on limited government. What
well,
does that
so
mean?
this was a specific bill that was in the state Senate. So let's see. This one here, House Bill 1429, county administration public assistance programs. I mean, they vote on tons of bills that we have no idea.
Right. No, nobody can keep up.
Yeah. So and they're saying like this was this was an overreach of government. This bill would have led to that. So they disagree with her yes vote.
And she voted yes. Okay, so that's why it's red.
Yeah.
They don't like that she voted
don't
yes.
like
Now
it.
I get it. Now I get how this works. Let's look at a few of the others before we move on.
So
What are the ones that are green? Okay.
green are the ones they agree with.
Right. So she voted no on transportation funding adjustments. Okay, because that's probably a bill that contains all sorts of funding for bike trails and things that don't really and fantasy trains, things that what Colorado want are wider roads that don't clog up as quickly and easily as they do.
Right.
They want fewer craters on the roads that mess up the alignment and of cars. They want safer transportation. They want more efficient transportation. Okay, keep going down the list here and we'll just get a little taste of who Barbara Kirkmeyer really is. Let's see here. Transportation network. Okay, so again, some of this stuff is esoteric to the general public, and a online add-on transaction fee, youth service enterprise. She voted no, and they like that. Okay, because she's probably against having another fee added on to the high cost of living in Colorado. Abortion medication access on college campuses. She voted no. Okay, there you go. See, that's where the base likes her on the abortion issue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out a pattern here of what the base doesn't like her on. It's not readily apparent based on this Liberty scorecard, but you see it. You who are listening and see it, you can go to the Liberty scorecard and study it and try to figure out what problems Barbara Kirkmeyer is going to have with the base. Because if she has that big problem with the base, it's irrelevant. She's not going to make it through the primary, and we're going to see Victor Marx as the candidate. And I think that that's very dangerous for Republicans simply because he has run as such I almost seems like a lunatic to a lot of people. He's scary.
A little bit.
Yeah, he's not to me. I like him. I like him personally, but these
too,
stories are scary.
Yeah, they're very, very scary. And because I really love the point that George made earlier was answering the damn questions. Because
he avoided every single one of them.
It's
I don't think he answered one of them.
No, he really didn't.
The one that got me the most was when they were asked to raise their hands.
I was just about to show that, actually.
Yeah, when they were asked to raise their hands, and he was just like, well, wait, I didn't get my input yet. And both of them, Scott and Barbara, were like, you were supposed to raise your hand.
It had to do with, what did that have to do with it?
I was going to play
question, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Let's look at that.
I'm going to go by a raise of hand here on abortion. Colorado has codified abortion access in the state constitution through Amendment 79. It would take another constitutional amendment to get rid of that. Would any three of you, by a raise of hands, lead an effort to try to take that out of the state constitution?
I would.
Only Mr. Bottoms? You failed successfully already at the state legislature.
So only Bottoms raised his
Only
hand.
Bottoms, and that's extraordinary because of the fact that Barbara Kirkmeyer has a well-known record, and it's going to come out of being 100% against abortion.
Yeah,
I would think,
Why
Go
didn't
ahead.
she raise her
Oh,
hand?
I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I think the fact, I think you pointed this out, George, was I think the fact that she didn't raise her hand was because it's Colorado. So I think maybe she figured it's probably not going to
It's moot.
happen.
It's not going to happen.
It's-
Why waste the political
Why
capital?
waste the time basically to
Right.
explain it? Because there's been countless times where this has been tried to be justified.
So
as,
she's
hey,
being
this is wrong.
pragmatic.
Yes.
Well, and that makes sense. I mean, again, why waste? It's disappointing
She
to me
just probably
because I
thinks,
would
what's
love.
the point?
Well, yeah, there is no
Really.
point. All that does is hurt your chance, your very slim chance of getting elected
Right.
enormously. Although it's going to come out anyway who
It's
she
yeah,
is
it's
on
going
this
to.
issue.
Yeah.
But she's saying, why would I waste time on that?
Right.
Basically. And I think that's what Marx is thinking too. Why would I waste time on that? It's too bad because this is the most pro-abortion environment in the world.
In the world. People
I'm not
come,
even talking
people come here just to do that.
Yeah, we're an
because-
abortion tourist state.
Yeah, exactly. People come here like just to do that because we've legalized it.
We have on the books an abortion law that actually allows, I'm not going to go into detail here. Anybody wants to look it up and study it, they can. That allows an abortion of a child who survives an abortion.
Yeah,
And there
or
are
even
such
like, or
children.
even like up to full term. They're
Up
they're
to full
allowed
term
to kill their
and
baby.
after. And that is just chilling to the
It's-
bone because I've spoken with, I met a young woman from Deerfield, Colorado, who did survive an abortion. It was a saline abortion. She survived. She got medical care.
I remember that. Yeah.
Her skin is burned. Her
Yeah.
whole body is burned.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely young woman who just loves life and is so happy
Yeah.
that somebody gave her medical care after. And why do people survive abortions? For the same reason that people sit 4 hours in an emergency room waiting to see a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the abortion clinic. If there's only one abortion doctor at any given clinic at any given time, that's the rule, not the exception.
Mm-hmm.
If something's going wrong, you could sit in the waiting room for an hour or more. And since we allow abortion up to the third trimester, all the way through the third trimester, sometimes babies are delivered before the abortion procedure begins. And in
Mhm.
Colorado,
You're
that
allowed to
baby is
continue
allowed,
that. Yeah.
the doctor and the parent is allowed to simply let that child die from neglect.
Yes.
That is barbaric.
It
That is the
is.
state we live in.
Yes.
So unless there's any more about the debate either of you want to get into, I'm going to move on from here. But I want to make sure we exhaust debate discussion before
Who do you guys think won the debate?
Victor Marx.
Okay.
I mean, judging by the votes and stuff, it might be Scott.
Scott Bottoms?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I thought you were saying Barbara last night.
I would last night. Yeah. If I had to choose, I think I would personally choose her because I think
Sure.
throughout the duration of that entire debate, she kept her composure really well.
Yes.
She answered every question. And just between all three of them, like Scott Bottoms and Barbara Kirkmeyer, they seem to all have a plan. Victor
Yes.
Marx doesn't seem to have one. And
all,
that's
all rational.
problematic to me.
I think most rational mainstream Republicans would agree with you on that
Mm-hmm.
regarding Barbara Kirkmeyer, that she won.
Mm-hmm.
We have open primaries in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
That might help her case some because you're going to have some independents choosing to, and I think she won over the independents last night.
Yeah.
But generally, primaries are determined by the base, the hardcore of the extremists. That's why Victor Marx is in the lead at this point, because at this point, we're so far from the election. It's only sort of the base people who have their heart and soul committed to certain issues.
Mm-hmm.
And Victor Marx, I say he won simply because it wasn't a complete disaster.
Right.
That's all
If
he
it
had
kept
to
going, It
avoid.
could have been a complete disaster.
Right. And it's kind of like Donald Trump in a way. I'm not comparing the two, but Donald Trump's base support is so strong.
Mhm.
Like he said, he could walk out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody for no reason, and he'd still win.
Mhm.
And he's not kidding.
Yeah.
He's not kidding. So, Victor Marx won the debate because this is the primary,
Mhm.
and he won it among the base.
Yeah.
Just simply by all he had to do was not spontaneously combust on the
Short circuit,
platform.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think Kyle Clark won the debate, personally.
Interesting point.
Yes,
Kyle,
that's actually a really good point.
Because I mean, Kyle Clark.
Really good.
A couple months ago, Kyle Clark's career here in Colorado was a little on the rocks, and now after this Victor Marx interview and this debate,
Yeah.
I think he made the two front runners, Scott and Victor, look not great.
Not great.
And
Yeah.
I think he kind of just exposed that
Yes, exposed a lot of
the Republican
their
Party here
bullshit.
is not doing well. And
yeah, I agree with you, George, on your.
That's a
I like that
really
you
good point.
chose
Yeah.
Kyle Clark. I didn't know that was an option, but I will say,
That's
you got to think outside the box.
Oh yeah,
Kyle Clark,
I think that's genius. Yeah.
he is a consummate professional at what he's great at what he does. I don't agree with Kyle on probably 95% of all issues, and I think that over the years he has really exposed himself as an openly biased journalist,
Mm-hmm.
openly on the left. But I almost prefer that over those who try to hide that fact. At least with Kyle
Right.
Clark, you know who he is, you know where he's coming from. And he couldn't be more professional in his presentation of the news and his ability to really manage a debate and to conduct an interview. He may be leaving 9 News under new ownership. I hope not,
Mm-hmm.
even though I don't think that he's I don't agree with him on issues. I think he's really good at what he does. And I just think it's important to have somebody that.
Last night, what did you call him last night? Right?
We're not going to go there. That wasn't nice. He's
You're kind
that
of
wasn't
mean.
nice.
As Victor Marx would say.
And he's been mean to me on TV in the past. But not very often. Not very often. I know of one occasion, but I like the guy in terms of, I respect him as a professional. So
I definitely agree with that too. I don't know too much about him, but I do know he's kind of a not so nice person. But yeah, I think I agree with George on that one because he has no shame in what he says, and you know who he is as a person, and he owns up to it.
that's right. And I'm a little surprised he's still here. Should he lose his job under 9 News ownership, should that happen, he's going to probably be on the national stage. He's of the quality that he could be on any of the mainstream center left. I would say far left in some cases networks. MSNBC, CNBC, whatever, CBS. He would fit in well on any of their 24-hour news platforms. I think he'd be a good fit. But let's move on. We've been talking about we talked briefly about the war on children, because we are the most pro-abortion state in the world, not just the country, but many.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of Coloradans and a lot of Americans realize that throughout most of the world, much of the world, abortion is considered barbaric. Interestingly, the left likes to support these Islamic theocracies all around the globe. And you'll see the left out there saying, let's spread the intifada globally. And those places absolutely do not tolerate abortion at all.
No, they do not whatsoever.
Why the left seems to have so much support for theocracies that are against everything they stand for.
They don't know.
I'll never figure that
what
out.
they're talking about. Even even with our protests that we go to, if you ask them basic questions, they can't answer them.
You know what it is?
And then they get mad.
Shut the fuck up! You want to know why? Because first of all, they're ill-informed.
I would assume my white privilege would keep me safe.
But when they are informed, it does not change their perspective in the least.
No,
And the reason for that is because they hate this country.
Yeah.
They have been taught that it is an evil place, that they're on stolen land.
This is stolen land. No one can be illegal here.
Even though all land is stolen, it belongs to whoever won the last war, whatever country you're in.
It's conquered. Yeah.
That's right. And so anyone else who hates this country
is going to agree.
Iran hates this country. Palestine hates this country.
Mm-hmm.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend is one of the most intellectually weak positions anyone can take, but that is the position that these left-wing activists take.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I've gone off on a tangent that I was not intending to. I want to talk about the war on children in Colorado. So Colorado at one point was one of the greatest examples of a school choice state in the country. School choice is important because not all children are the same. Some are dyslexic. Some are deeply intellectual and they learn well in a classroom. What's so funny?
It's dyslexic.
Dyslectic.
I think I fall into that category. What does Tucker think about that? Yeah.
Laughing at you.
Yeah, he said, I deserve that one. I deserve that one.
The Tucker chuckle.
But some are gifted in music. Some are gifted in math. Some have learning problems. We have forever, due to various limitations that we're overcoming, had a one-size-fits-all school system.
Mm-hmm.
You put Johnny or Jill in whatever school is closest to you, and they all are supposed to learn the same way. Now, we don't do that with anything else in this free market economy. Everything else, we have choice. You want to go buy clothes, you've got upscale Macy's, you've got Walmart, you have Goodwill, you have, I don't care what it is. We purchase commodities and have choice. You go to a gas station, you have 4 or 5 choices of what kind of fuel you want to put into a car. Choice is what keeps prices competitive and what serves all needs. So Colorado has spent decades creating school choice opportunities. We have a lot of charter schools throughout the state, which are public schools,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can, if you have a child who's gifted in music, send that person to a charter school. The child's going to learn to read, write, arithmetic, all of that. But we're also going to focus on his musical talents or her musical talents. Or Johnny can't read, so we're going to send him to a school that focuses on people who are dyslectic. Dyslectic. So school choice is a beautiful thing for children. And I always like to say school choice in this country, really a hallmark event that really started it in this country is Brown v. Board of Education in Kansas. Little girl in her neighborhood in Topeka couldn't go to the neighborhood school. She had to go to a school that would allow black children. So she was being bused far away while her neighbors, white children in her neighborhood could just simply walk to school. She had to go to a special school for black children. And in Brown v. Board of Education, we put a stop to that. It was rampant throughout the country. It just so happened that a case out of Topeka, Kansas changed all of that. And it gave Linda Brown the option of going to a different school. That was the beginning of school choice. Now, it had to go a long way from there, and that's why the charter school system was set up. Florida has excelled with it. Colorado has excelled with it, a number of other states. And we did that by saying the money follows the child. Okay, so in Colorado, that money today is about $12,000 and some change that follows every child to whatever school the parent chooses to send the child to, so long as it's a public school. And charter schools can focus on anything. However, they can't, and homeschooling. The money to a certain extent can follow homeschool children. Okay, not the full 12,000, but they get something. So toward the goal of educational choice, educational freedom, I like to call it, so that we don't have Johnny and Jane stuck in one-fits-all schools, and a few children succeed and go on to Harvard, and more of them fail and don't get the kind of education you need to really survive and flourish in an advanced country such as ours. Okay, so in the 1970s, we created BOCES. George, what does that stand for? Tell us what that stands for. It's Board of Cooperative. That is, I always have trouble with this. Board, because we go by the acronym and not what it really says. But what it stands for is Board of Cooperative Educational Services. And you can create these through this law. Basically, you can create homeschool enhancement schools for people who homeschool. So we have them, much like a charter school, you have the BOCES organizations that are certified by a public school district. And in Colorado, there's an organization, Ed Reimagined BOCES, that has made a deal with 2 public school districts. And I think, how many school districts are in Colorado? George, would you look that up? Yeah. So, you know, for efficiency's sake, they've made an arrangement with 2 public school districts so that groups of parents can get together and start enhancement programs for their homeschooled children. So if you want, maybe one of these would be focused on on music, math. There's all kinds of special interests to help. You know, look, I have 6 children. One of my children simply did not work. It wasn't working out to go to the one-size-fits-all school that I had him in a very high-end, very good school district in Colorado. So but what he loved was flying. He loved airplanes. And so we found a charter school in Colorado, was called the Aerospace Academy, Colorado Aerospace Academy at the time. And we started taking him, we enrolled him there, and for he finished out high school in this charter school that focused on aviation. And now he's an aviation professional. It went very well. He went from hating school, skipping classes, not wanting to have anything to do with it, not learning anything, to I love school and I'm learning everything I need to learn. And they are serving me in the way that my interest. Yeah. They're preparing me for something. And then he went on to an aviation college. And now at a very young age, 23 years old, it's almost unheard of in Colorado that someone in their 20s buys a house.
Oh, yeah.
He's a homeowner with a wife and a child living the dream because I had that choice. If I hadn't had that choice, if my wife and I hadn't had that choice, I don't know where he'd be right now, but he certainly wouldn't be a homeowner and making the kind of 6-figure income he is at his age. That just doesn't happen unless you are able to excel at something that you love. So that's what these BOCES organizations are about, helping children excel at something they love. Now, this is like charter schools and like private schools. This is a threat to the established educational system that is controlled by teachers' unions. And teachers' unions care about teachers because teachers pay them. The money's taken out of their paychecks. They don't care much about the children who these teachers are supposed to be teaching. So they fight things like BOCES. Now, here's what the legislature did this year, just a few weeks ago, to children in Colorado. Oh, and I'll tell you the reason that this happened was because one of the BOCES programs, and I think there were dozens and dozens of them at this point. One of the BOCES programs was referred to as the first Christian public school.
Bring the mic a little closer.
One of the BOCES programs was called the first Christian public school. Now, just saying Christian public school sets off alarms in a lot of people. Oh my God, separation of church and state, the Establishment Clause. We can't have Christianity in a school. And so the legislature wasted no time in trying to shut down this system of certifying these enhancement programs for homeschooled children. And the way they did it was they said, you can't have these two school districts doing this. Any BOCES program, any enhancement for homeschooled children has to happen within a certain distance of a particular school district administration building. So now we have thousands of children, I don't know the exact number, in Colorado who are not getting the advantage of the BOCES enhancement programs that they were, because they couldn't stand the thought of a Christian public school. They're wrong about saying, when they say that you can't have a Christian public school. And the reason it was established by a law firm that wanted to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. The first public Christian school is defended by the Alliance Defending Freedom. That's a law firm that is dedicated to upholding our civil rights, mostly the First Amendment. They take a lot of First Amendment cases to the Supreme Court, and they win. There is no question at this point that public money can follow a child to a sectarian school. That used to not be allowed because people misinterpreted the Constitution. They misinterpreted the First Amendment and tried to apply it exactly the opposite of what it is intended to do, which is to keep government out of churches, not protect the government from churches. Okay. Now, anyone knows this today because of a few Supreme Court rulings that were made this century. Trinity Lutheran Church of Columbia, Inc. v. Comer. In a 7-2 decision, this said that states cannot exclude religious organizations from generally available public benefit programs. Okay? So a BOCES is exactly that. It's a generally available public benefit program. Trinity Lutheran v. Columbia upheld that notion. Espinoza v. Montana versus the Department of Revenue. This is where the court struck down Montana's no-aid constitutional provision that barred families from using scholarship funds. These are tax credit programs at religious schools. So the money, if tax money goes into a scholarship that you can take with the child to a Catholic school, a Jewish school, an Islamic school, what have you, the state cannot discriminate because the First Amendment forbids discrimination on a basis of religion. So in a 5-4 ruling, Espinoza v. Montana again tells us that the money can follow children into a sectarian school. We have Carson v. Mackin. Now, all of these have happened just recently. Let's see. Trinity Lutheran was 2017. Espinoza was 2020. Carson v. Mackin was 2022. That's a decision in which the court ruled that Maine could not exclude religious schools from its tuition assistance program. I don't know why we have to keep trying this. It's settled law. And then we have from 2022, the big one, Zellman v. Simmons Harris. This upheld Ohio's voucher program. This program was public money going into vouchers so that children could attend the school of their choice. And it was largely because of children like Linda Brown. Back in the 1950s in Topeka, when she couldn't attend the school of her choice, she had to attend the school the state said she had to attend. So Zellman v. Simmons Harris was very much like Brown v. Board of Education because these scholarship programs were to use public money to get minority children, mostly Black and other minority children, out of underperforming schools in neighborhoods that didn't, that were not, these were, I don't know how to say it, these were poverty-stricken neighborhoods. So their schools were impoverished. They were not good schools. And if a parent wanted a child to go to a good school and had a way to get the child to the good school, they could take one of these vouchers that was state funded. And so the court ruled that that was allowed under the Establishment Clause because it was neutral toward religion. It could go to any school of any religious denomination. So it's settled. If this were science, we would say it's settled science. There is no such thing as settled science, but there is such a thing as settled law. And this is settled law. So because the left-wing legislature was so freaked out about the notion of public funds going to a school that allowed prayer and allowed a cross on the wall, and this is just, this is an enhancement program for homeschooled children. We can't have that in Colorado. So they essentially eliminated all of these enhancement programs. And it is a blatant attack on the First Amendment, but mostly it's an attack on children and families in Colorado. And I'd like to know, you two are married, Cameron and George, and you have a child. And I want to know how you feel about the legislature eliminating one of your options for educating your child.
Are you saying you're pro-choice?
I am indeed pro-choice on education. Thanks, Tucker. I appreciate Tucker's support on that. No, I am definitely pro-choice on education. Education freedom is the most important element of keeping our country competitive going forward. We need smart children. We need children who are encouraged to be who they are and to overcome the obstacles that would otherwise hold them back. So because the left despises Christianity, for the same reason they just despise this country, they despise Christianity. We eliminated all of these programs in Colorado, and it's just outrageous. It is an attack on those children. If you think the Constitution actually doesn't allow religious views in schools, you're wrong. People misinterpret that because they don't like Christianity, so they don't allow Christianity into public schools. However, we have all over Texas, we have publicly funded Islamic schools. In 2026, the Texas Comptroller approved multiple Islamic private schools, including the Excellence Academy in McKinney and Brighter Horizons Academy in Garland. These are all in the North Texas, Dallas metro area, and there are more of them. Now, there's a movement in Texas where Muslims are moving there in droves, and they want to create Islamic communities and impose Sharia law. That's another Sharia laws redundant because Sharia is law, but that's where they would impose their religious rules on people. And those would be viewed by the left as extremely far right restrictions on the way you can live. Now that's happening in Texas. And so we have these Islamic schools that are being funded with public dollars. The reason nobody's fighting that is because it's not Christian. I say separation of church and state. Well, I'm sorry, that's a church. And Islam is a religion. Muslims are religious people. So we allow it there, but we can't have an enhancement program in Colorado for homeschooled children where there might be a cross on the wall. I want to know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Christians are definitely, I remember when I was in school, there were conversations about taking, teachers would tell students that they didn't have to say under God when they were doing the Pledge of Allegiance.
Really?
Actually, in my high school, I remember it was open policy that, if you didn't want to do the Pledge of Allegiance, that's totally fine.
Oh, wow.
And I was a public high school here in Colorado.
Yeah.
I had you in a Catholic school when you were younger,
Right.
and then you moved into the public school system later when we moved from Boulder to another town. You had until last week an option to homeschool and take advantage of all these great enhancement programs, and now they're all gone, at least for now. I think they're going to figure out a way around this. The Alliance Defending Freedom will find a way around it.
So we can't get that money for our child if we decide to.
If you decide to homeschool, and there was an equestrian program that met on Thursdays to enhance your child because your child's interested in horses, that program is now probably gone because they had to get rid of this Christian public school, which
So they
was an
had to
enhancement
get rid of
program.
everything else too.
Yeah, they had to get rid of everything else. So they were motivated by the fact that the enhancement program involved Christianity. It was probably, look, I'm a homeschool. There are a lot of homeschool families who are teaching reading, writing, arithmetic at home and teaching religion at home if they wanted to, if they could. But they wanted an enhancement that involved, that also taught using fundamental Christian principles as a basis for the education. Nobody has to go to that school. In fact, it would be jumping through a lot of hoops to use such an enhancement program. So it's not forcing religion on anyone, but the left so hates Christianity. They would not have done this if it was an Islamic enhancement program.
Well, I mean, is this going to affect the Islamic community too? Because I'm sure a lot of them homeschool as well.
Well, it will affect them by default because what this has done is decertified a lot of enhancement programs. It simply across the board decertified them by making it necessary that each enhancement program be within a certain distance of a school district.
Gotcha.
Whereas right now, there was an organization creating all of these enhancement programs. They were dedicated to it because they believed in the cause. And they had two districts, I think District 49 in Colorado Springs and whatever district is in Elizabeth. Those two were going along with it. Now, to put this all back together, each of these programs is going to have to go convince a nearby school district to certify the enhancement program. That's going to be that's going to be very difficult because the politics of all of these different school boards there are a lot of different school boards out there. Most of them, it's the exception. People don't pay attention. Let me explain this. People don't pay attention to school board elections. So who gets to control the outcome? Forever and ever, it has been the teachers' unions have controlled the outcome. They're the ones who know what's going on. They vet the candidates. They fund the candidates they want, and they're pro-union candidates. Obviously, a teachers' union doesn't want competition. It wants the old one-size-fits-all model, and to hell with the needs of the student. It wants that model, not the one that gives you countless choices. So it's hard to find school boards that are friendly to this cause because, like I say, most of the districts are created by the board members are elected by the unions. So it's going to be almost impossible to put this back together. The legislature knew that. They were willing to, throw the baby out with the bathwater, to use an old cliche, to get rid of this public Christian school. And it's just an outrageous, the left's hatred of Christianity and Western values is the reason they don't give a damn about the thousands of students who now don't have the enhancement programs that were helping them. I was one of the first school choice children when I was a child. There wasn't such a thing as school choice back then. So in the 1970s, my mother was working at a university, and nearby was a campus school that was effectively would be a charter school today. And that was a campus school that was the university that she was working for a lot of teachers would go there to get hands-on training. And it was I didn't fit the one-size-fits-all classroom model. And so my mom put me in that school. And it was sort of like a shopping mall of charter schools, because it would help figure out what a student was interested in. You got your reading, writing, arithmetic, okay? But then if you had a particular interest in construction, they would focus heavily on that. I learned to weld in 3rd grade at that school. I literally learned to weld, to do an adult skill that is monetizable because I went to that school. It would teach, whatever your special interest might be, they had a means of focusing on it in addition to the fundamentals, reading, writing, arithmetic. That school got shut down by the Minnesota legislature a number of years after I left the school, because we moved away, but it got shut down for funding reasons. I don't know if that's what they said, but maybe it was just the fact that the teachers union didn't like that type of school interfering with the one-size-fits-all model that works well for the union bosses who collect fees from teachers. So that is where my heart got devoted to school choice, was because I got to go to that school for a couple of years, and it really changed my life and it changed my trajectory. It wasn't all good. In some ways it was bad, but mostly I say those couple of years in that school played a big role in making me who I am today.
Well, I just, as parents to be, parents already, as we like to say,
You are
but
parents.
we've
Yeah.
our baby's going to be here in 2
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
And I know just in the blink of an eye, she's going to be in school. And we're definitely nervous about what to do, because we don't want to leave this state. We don't want to leave Colorado, how many people have we seen out on the street interview episodes where these are teachers that we're talking to, and they're radical, and they're skipping school. They had to shut down many schools in I think it was January or February when we went to.
Yeah,
Are you a teacher?
Yeah, I am. Kids belong in school.
Can't be in school today because so many teachers are taking off.
That I
Protests
That's
after.
right. They just decided, the teachers all decided to skip school that day and protest against, what was it? I think they were against ICE.
It was after the Renee Good thing,
Yeah.
or it may have been after
That's right.
Freddie,
It was
but-
after those tragedies in Minnesota.
Yeah, and most of the people that we talked to, and I don't know if it was just coincidence or because there were that many of them out there, were teachers. I mean, I was
Yeah.
just
Oh,
blown
yeah.
away.
Well, and it was kind of funny. You'd see somebody with,
Or there were nurses. There were people that with jobs that you really shouldn't be taking time off of work from unless you have to, because I mean they're necessary. We need them, right?
Yeah.
The children need to be in school being taught. When schools have to close down because these teachers are so radicalized that they put their politics in front of the children. We don't want our child to go to that kind of school.
No,
And-
absolutely not.
But I know homeschooling is incredibly difficult as well. And so if they're making that harder, that's just.
they're making it incredibly harder, because those enhancement programs make it possible for a lot of people who could not otherwise handle homeschooling, because that's a very difficult thing. But at those protests, you'd see somebody, you'd walk up to a woman with, piercings through her nose and eyelids and purple hair over here.
Right now, older white dudes are fucking scary to most of us.
Part of it's pink and part, whatever. I don't care how you want to express yourself, but that's the way a lot of teachers look today in the public school system. And if you have a problem with that, maybe you're bigoted. You have a right to be against that kind of a look. I don't want that person teaching my child. I'm not that way. I don't care what somebody looks like. But if you don't want to, you can send your child to any number of private Catholic schools or Lutheran schools or Jewish day schools. They don't allow people to look like that. We have choice in this country. And this is they've just eliminated options for thousands of Coloradans. And their children are not going to be better off for it. They're going to be worse off for it. And this is all to indulge the left's hatred toward Christianity. Mostly that's why this happened. Secondarily, it happened because the teachers union doesn't like competition. So let's move on. We've got a couple other issues we were going to discuss today. In LA, Spencer Pratt finished second in the mayoral race, and he's going to begin a runoff against the current mayor of LA, who is a disaster. She let her city burn to a lot of it burned to the ground. Spencer Pratt finished second. He's in a runoff with her now. And I think he actually has a pretty good chance to win that race. I think we could see in LA, the city's second largest city, go exactly the opposite direction of what happened in New York, which recently elected a communist as mayor. And that is going very poorly in New York. And I think people in LA are going to not care what party they belong to or their parents' party belonged to. They're tired of stepping over homeless people and the
trash.
drug needles.
Yeah.
And and so I think I really think that this relatively unknown, they call him what do they call him,
An underdog.
no, a celebrity, a reality star.
Yeah, that's
their
all
one
I have to
argument
get away.
against him. Who cares?
Yeah, who gives a
Again,
shit?
we described the political environment. People are tired of the politics of the person that has to be perfect. We found out 10 years ago this person said or did something, got arrested for drunk driving. That should tank the whole ship. No, it doesn't work that way anymore. Whether it should or not, it's irrelevant. It doesn't work that way anymore. They want you to deliver the goods. They want to know what the goods are. And I think this guy is telling them exactly what they want to hear.
Yeah, he's personable.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
He's very personable. His logo is a hummingbird. They call him the hummingbird dad because he was a reality star, right? But he played a character that was like a hateable character, and he has explained that he's been playing a character. And honestly, he's a great guy. Like he married the woman that he fell in love with on this reality show, and he's not that character that he portrayed in on the show by all accounts. I mean, he is a family man who was living a quiet life. He had a, I guess, kind of niche Instagram following. He wasn't on TV anymore, but he had a niche Instagram following because he was really into hummingbirds. He had like all these videos. Apparently he can like hold a hummingbird and like talk to it. Like this guy has a special
Hummingbird whisperer.
Yeah, he's a hummingbird whisperer.
Your mother can do stuff like that.
And he was gonna live his quiet life until they burned his house down. And I just saw this video on X the other day. Maybe I can find it real quick. But,
put it up.
But the reservoir in LA is still empty. The one that
they needed to.
Yeah, I think Benny Johnson
make water come out of the fire hydrants where it was most needed.
Yeah,
Still sitting there empty. Nobody's
Empty.
refilled that reservoir, despite what happened.
Yep.
They don't learn.
No, they don't.
They don't give a damn. You've got this class of politicians on the left that go into government for the sake of control, for controlling other people, and they just enjoy being. You know what? I like when somebody gets elected who absolutely hates being in public office. They're doing it because they have to. They need to. Do you think what age is Donald Trump? He's almost 80 years old.
I think
Is he
so.
80?
Yeah, I think he's
70s, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. He's at a stage in life and he's a multi-billionaire that he ought to just be enjoying yachts and golf courses and his grandchildren. And this is the kind of public servant, love or hate him. I happen to be a fan most of what he's doing. And it has nothing to do with political affiliation or anything like that. He's delivering on a number of things that are important to me.
Yeah,
he's in office, and he's been, God, twice he's been damn near killed, and he's still doing this because he cares about fixing things.
Yep.
And I think it would be hard if you hated him to argue that against that.
Right.
So that's the kind of people I want to see in public office. the ones who have, it's not a step up for them to go into public office. It's a step down.
Mm-hmm.
So look at the reservoir. This is, according to Benny Johnson, this is a Santa Ynez Reservoir. They went there with a drone. It's been claimed that it's been filled up, but here's the footage. It's still dry as a bone. The whole thing.
Unbelievable. Yeah, what you have there is the liner that keeps, the water from sinking into the soil.
Mm-hmm.
And not a drop of water's been in there and God knows how long. And the fact that they haven't fixed that after what happened in LA last year is just, it's beyond belief.
You think they would have spent every dollar they could to buy, borrow, or steal water from somebody, I mean, especially ahead of this mayoral.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh, California wastes all kinds of runoff.
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, because for various bizarre reasons that make no sense, but it's all counterproductive to humanity.
But I would say Spencer Pratt is the opposite of what we saw in Victor Marx last night. Honestly, he's running on policy. He's running on. He's showing his personality too, which is all Victor Marx is running on.
Mm-hmm.
And Spencer Pratt is he's explaining exactly what he wants to do. I mean, there's 5-10 minute videos on very specific policies. Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I agree with that. And I'm very disappointed in Victor Marx and his just his, it's all about me and what I've done. And he's sort of a Walter Mitty character, really.
Yeah.
Even if it's true. But clearly some of it is not. That's been exposed. But if he would run on issues, he would still be very much a viable candidate, but he's not. So let's move on. I want to talk about what's happening to conservative politics in the United States since the death of Charlie Kirk. I had no idea how important Charlie Kirk was to the conservative movement, which I have been a part of since I was in high school and lived through the Carter administration. That's where my politics were formed, right there. When Ronald Reagan took over from Jimmy Carter, and life got better for everyone, including me and my family. And I'm a kid at the time, but I was a voracious reader, and I just saw a huge difference in the way that's how important a presidency is. Everything turned around for this country when Reagan took office, and the 1980s were a heyday. That was people didn't even think about politics in the 1980s. We had this grandfather at the helm in the White House, and the rest of us were just doing roller disco and having a great time.
Must have been so fun.
Oh, you guys can't imagine a world like that, because today it's politics all the time, and we're sitting here talking politics all day long on a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically are part of the culture right now. Let's move on, because there's.
I love how you're like, what the hell?
What the hell is that? Would somebody describe to me what that is?
It's Tucker Turkle.
Let's hear it again. Okay, that leads right into what I want to talk about now. Look, the left is in shambles right now. They have no leadership. I mean, can you think of anyone on the left in the Democratic Party right now who looks like a viable option to be president? On the right, you have Ron DeSantis, the famously successful governor of Florida. You have Vice President Vance. You have Marco Rubio. Anyone can see. I don't care where you stand politically. Anyone can see any three of those men in the Oval Office. They're all viable candidates for the presidency. On the left, you see absolutely nothing. But what I want to talk about is what's undermining politics on the right, and what's really going to hurt the Republican Party and Republican politics is a bunch of ragtag, although they get a lot of money and a lot of audience, podcasters who have started this little podcast pissing match. Basically, they don't give a damn about what they're doing to the country and to conservative politics. They just want to win the pissing match. And this all began after Charlie Kirk died. After his assassination, I knew Charlie, and I knew how good he was, and I knew how important he was to the conservative movement, but I had no idea the extent to which his death would hurt the conservative movement. We are adrift aimlessly right now with these three losers. I'm going to name them here. Nick Fuentes, who's a racist, weird. I mean, the guy just gives me the willies.
He's a Democrat right now, right?
I have no idea. I didn't know.
He came out and said that he's going to vote
Supposedly.
for the Democrats to essentially punish the Republican Party.
Oh, whatever. This guy is such a loser.
I think
Yet
he's
a lot
all
of young
talk.
center right or right wing people listen to him and take their talking points from him.
Well, I think he's going to run at some point. I think he's really booting up a America First party.
That is frightening. This guy he's a racist lunatic.
He hates women.
Yeah, he
You
hates
heard how he
women.
talks about women?
I think he's a self-loathing homosexual, frankly. And not that I have any. We have Candace Owens, who was Charlie Kirk found Candace Owens. He literally discovered Candace and made her
What she
famous.
is. Yeah.
And I think she fell in love with Charlie Kirk, and I think she's still in love with Charlie Kirk, but she's decided to capitalize on the tragic assassination of Charlie. And then, of course, you have the ultimate scum, Tucker Carlson. Tucker. Tucker became so arrogant in his Fox News job that they ended up firing him, and I guess there was some misbehavior. It's sort of let's just say women didn't enjoy working around this guy. Okay, and now he has decided that just taking on MAGA is somehow going to distinguish him from the crowd, and these people are tearing what was a very cohesive conservative movement that we hadn't seen since the Reagan era, just tearing it to shambles. You guys listen to these people. I don't listen to them too much. I only get the highlights. But what's your view of this? What I can't call it anything but a pissing match.
Pretty much. I mean, from what I've seen too, because I've stopped listening to Tucker Carlson. I obviously can't stand Nick Fuentes, and there was some stuff like with Candace that I was like listening to, like just because of you guys. I mean, you guys really pretty much like introduced me to her, and I thought that she was, like reasonable and stuff like that. But I think ever since Charlie like passed away, I think the whole thing has just collapsed.
I was a huge fan of Candace Owens a long time ago when she talked
Yeah,
about
I
politics,
remember that,
and she fought against the left's the left's effort to divide this country by race,
Mm-hmm.
and she was highly effective at countering that. And telling
good
people
debater,
that this is not a racist country in which you
Was.
can't succeed if you're black, and everybody.
Well,
hates
she
you
led
if you're
the
black.
she led the Blexit movement.
That's right.
Which was right when Brexit was happening. So it was great. I mean, she kind of trademarked that.
Yeah,
And-
she did, and I don't know. Now she sounds like a lunatic conspiracy theorist who ought to be writing for one of the old tabloids that, used to publish articles about how our president came from outer space and stuff like that. Look, some guy showed up and shot Charlie in the neck, and he was so stupid as he left his weapon behind. He had text messages saying he did it and why he did it. And that's the guy who did it. Look, I know technically innocent till proven guilty, but we know who did this. And we know what the motivation was. And she is trying to put the blame on the prime minister of Israel. And this is just and other people. Anything that pops into her head killed Charlie.
And Erica, she's blaming her a lot too.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Tell me more about that. What
I just,
her taunting of
there's,
Erica.
yeah, I mean, I think, because again, I've stopped because it's just outrageous and ridiculous. But the stuff that I do see is like she's just like monitoring every single thing that Erica Kirk is saying, doing, like, and just has her own like, oh, she shouldn't be doing that because of A, B, and C. Like her
Well, and her
husband.
conspiracy theory involves Erica's involvement. She has Erica involved in the conspiracy to kill Charlie so
Yeah,
that she could take the throne.
yeah, and
That is mean and it is
it's
ugly and it's
super mean.
disgusting.
Yeah,
Of course, if any of this is true, how do you get the guy who's going to go do the deed? To do the deed? Where does that come from? How does that
how is
fit
this
into the
any way
conspiracy
linked
theory?
together? Yeah, one of the things that she's really fixated on is that apparently um Erica and Charlie like filed for like some sort of like divorce, or I can't remember exactly like what the term is, but like there was like some form of like separation between the two. I think 2 days prior before he was shot, and I have no idea how true that is, but
Well, if it's coming from Candace Owens,
it's
there's
a big claim that she's
it
like
would
has been
there's
holding over Erica's head, or has been holding, over everybody's like head, saying like, "Hey, this is weird, right? Like, why is there this like like some sort of like it's some sort of like document or some sort of like, again, I can't remember
I'll
the
have to
term.
look into that. I
I'll
don't
have
know
to
anything
look into
about
it
it, but I'll
too.
tell you what, she has zero credibility. Whether it's true or not,
Yeah,
that
I
has
mean,
no
it's
relevance to it. She'll say it whether
like none of her business.
she is a horrible person who's doing horrible harm to everything that most
Yeah.
of us on the right hold dear and fight for. And then, of course, you have Tucker Carlson. And what the hell has happened to Tucker Carlson, George?
He's gone off
He's-
the rails.
Well, I think
He
he
believes her.
I honestly kind of think Tucker has turned into a puppet. I think I think if you follow the money, he's gotten a lot of money from the Qataris. He's
Mhm.
gotten a lot of money from the Saudis. He, played this super friendly and out of touch interview with Putin, and he was blown away by just a normal grocery store in Moscow, which just shows how completely out of touch he is with reality. But he's gone completely off the rails with Israel, the Iran war, which I understand. Like, a lot of us are sick of this.
Oh, we
war.
all have trouble with the war on Iran. It needs to improve. Things need to turn because that's becoming a huge problem for Americans.
But I think Ben Shapiro is right. I mean, he's not the first person to come up with this concept of the horseshoe right and left, the extremes of the right,
Mhm.
extremes of the left, eventually agreeing essentially on many issues. But, I think Tucker lost a lot of credibility with that New York Times interview where he just blatantly was proven, he called Trump the Antichrist.
Oh my gosh, this is the
And
funniest thing ever.
then denied it, and the interviewer from the New York Times pulled up the clip of
She
him.
literally was like,
I know. I'm seeing a lot of that these days. I'm seeing a lot of people deny things that you can just pull up a piece of paper and say he said this. Look, Graham Plattner probably would say that he didn't say he went into the Marines so he could kill people because he wanted to kill people. It's right there. He did. He posted it. It's just a fact. I don't know whether he owns up to it or not, but we're seeing a lot of that now where people say and do things. And we've seen it with Victor Marx as well.
So
And-
it's funny that you mentioned that. this just came to mind too. So with the interview, and I don't mean to keep like backtracking or anything like that, but
Backtrack all you want, dear, with my permission.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, what I thought was really like mind blowing to me about the interview between Victor Marx and Kyle Clark, right?
Yes. Well, no. Kyle Clark was the debate.
Are you talking about the interview or are you talking about the debate?
Oh, the interview.
The interview.
The interview.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was Kyle. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
There was a lot of similarities with that and the New York Times clip with Tucker Carlson because Kyle like kept like, stating like, hey, like you stated this in so and so, like can you elaborate on that or can you confirm or whatever it was? And Victor Marx was like, I didn't say that. I don't know where you got that from. And I was like, that sounds really familiar.
Yeah, these people that record everything they say are like very bad at realizing that they record everything they say.
Yes.
It's all documented and
that's what like really kind of like ticked me off in the first place. I was like, I even turned to George and I was like, sounds a lot like Tucker Carlson because Tucker did the same thing where he was like, I didn't say that.
Well, and
that's the
to
thing.
Scott Bottom's credit, they corrected. They said you said that there were
That is true. Yeah.
more TDA members here in Colorado than actually exist, and he said, yeah, you know what, I got that number wrong.
But
And that's what you do when you get a number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean it's easy to get a number wrong. Whatever.
Right, that's fine. But he owned up to it and he was like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like,
But I guess
like my bad. But like, he didn't fully deny it. He was like, I didn't say that. Basically, like gaslighting.
Yeah.
it is a little harder to go back on calling Trump the Antichrist, I guess. Demon said it.
Wait a minute. Who said Trump was the Antichrist?
Tucker Carlson.
Tucker
Carlson?
Yeah, have you seen? Here, I'll pull up the New York Times.
No. I said Tucker Carlson.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tucker Carlson.
Got to do the Tucker chuckle.
Yeah.
I got a lot of jobs here.
Yeah. What, George? Thank you.
You got to like give me a wink or something.
Yeah. I'll point at you. Okay, so we've got this Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson thing that's really ripping at the seams of the conservative movement, which was before Charlie's death. It was formidable. The left was going to have a hard time winning elections in the midterms. And I don't think that's the case now. And we can blame these three primarily for that.
A number of people have tried to capitalize on Charlie Kirk's death. Candace Owens, most obviously.
Yeah, that's disgusting
Uh,
what Candace has done. Candace is lining her pockets at Charlie's expense and at his widow's expense.
And then it has
She
the
does-
audacity to say that Erica's doing it.
Right.
too.
Yeah, that's she doesn't give a damn about Erica and her feelings and what it must be like to be the widow of someone who was shot. And we know who shot him and we know why that person shot him, yet somehow she had something to do with it.
okay, so just going on that same track, she's capitalizing on one way. Then we've got Victor Marx, who released a book. I think it came out after Charlie's death that
did, I
had a
think you're right.
forward from Charlie Kirk.
Charlie,
right. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that. But
No, that's
then
correct.
also he was the first person to put out on social media that Charlie Kirk was confirmed dead.
who
And then
was
he
with her?
shortly after announced that he was going to run for president. I mean, it seems like he could be another one of these people that are putting words in Charlie's mouth. Like, who knows what Charlie might say about him right now out on the
Now,
campaign
yeah.
trail. And
Right.
he used that as a springboard. And, I'm not saying that's right. Like, I'm sure he was close with Charlie and Charlie spoke highly of him.
Yeah, I could see it.
But it is just
But,
this.
I mean,
I don't really know what to make of what has happened to the Conservative Party since Charlie has died. And
yeah.
and
I
you know
mean,
what?
I don't either. That's how bad.
In terms of this media world that we live in now, and the mainstream media is largely irrelevant at this point. When you've got, who's the kid who exposed all the stuff?
Nick
in
Shirley.
Minnesota? When you got
Nick Shirley.
people like Nick Shirley out there really making the mainstream media a joke. The fact that they didn't even follow up with what he uncovered. They never would have uncovered it in the first place. And, a big scoop is trying to find something wrong with his character because the entire mainstream media got scooped on one of the biggest stories of the year. So I think that Nick Shirley is an important component right now of the conservative movement. And I also think Ben Shapiro is one. I have hope that Ben Shapiro can take over where Charlie left off, that Ben can pull this back together, that Ben can bring rationality back to the youth conservative movement. I can't think of anyone who matches Charlie's intellect as well as Ben Shapiro does. They're both just extraordinary. Huh?
You got Matt Walsh too. He's
there's and who are some others?
I don't think Matt Walsh appeals so much to the younger crowd. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, that's a good point.
It appeals to me.
And Crowder's making a comeback.
Yeah, Crowder's making a comeback, and Crowder was a big inspiration for Charlie Kirk. He started that whole debate on the street forum.
That's right.
Yeah,
prove me wrong.
Yeah, prove me wrong. Tour. Yeah. So we'll see, but
that's like it though.
Yeah,
I feel like they're like the only.
Charlie had something that nobody else
at.
is ever going to be able to emulate. People are going to try. People are going to. But it's just never going to be the same, and it's a shame.
No, you cannot.
It really
there will never again be a someone of Charlie. I mean, maybe there will. I don't know. There's nobody alive right now who's in the public eye, who's publicly available, who can match Charlie.
And
except for I think Ben Shapiro can. But Ben can do it, but Ben doesn't have quite the stage presence that Charlie had.
Mm-hmm.
But he can work on that.
Yeah,
Ben is an intellectual's intellectual. Yes. Charlie was an intellectual who could communicate more easily with the common man than Ben is capable of doing. Whereas Charlie was self-taught and proof that no amount of formal education can outdo self-learning. Whereas Ben is both. He's self-taught and he's also, educated up to the point of having a Juris Doctor from Harvard. And that's an asset in many ways. But if he could communicate with and relate to the 20 through young 30s crowd on college campuses, that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
In this podcast world that has become so important, and we're just a little part of that. I think he's our great hope on the right.
And I think even if there is another Charlie Kirk out there, and I mean this is just my opinion, I mean we're not going to see it for a very, very long time.
Well, yes, we certainly don't see it,
and I think we might see it emerge on the left, honestly, which is the sad part.
Well, they're certainly
that's the most scary part too.
Yeah. And now the left had Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan has pretty much moved away from most of what the left-wing political movement stands for now. I wouldn't say that he's really on the right either. But he's a smart podcaster who helps people think, he challenges idiotic conventional wisdom when it's idiotic. So he's a big player now. But somebody needs to emerge to replace Charlie. That needs to happen. And so I just, who do you think it's going to be?
Time. I don't know. It's really hard to
determine. Nobody's going to listen to Ben right now, unfortunately, because he's a Jew. And
and there's so much anti-Semitism.
It's on the right. It's on the left. It doesn't matter where you look. I mean, people that just friends of mine that I aren't even into politics. They're telling me everything's Israel's fault. It's so mainstream. Sure, you can have your problems with Israel for sure. I don't disagree with that. Trump had apparently, according to this leaked phone call that happened yesterday, he was swearing at Bibi and
he literally told Bibi to go F himself.
Yeah,
not that long ago. Well, after the 2020 election, because Bibi was the first world leader to call and congratulate Joe Biden on his victory. And Trump said, what I said. Bibi Netanyahu can go F himself. But that's the thing with Trump. He's a New Yorker. He can say something like that, and then, we all we hug and make up a few months later. And that's what has happened with Bibi Netanyahu. That was personal. It had nothing to do with Israel. It had nothing to do with Zionism or anti-Semitism. That had to do with a phone call congratulating the next president of the United States when it wasn't him.
Yeah. Well, that annoys me. Like, people say, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm anti-Zionist, which all that means, Zionism means that the Jewish people have a right to Israel, which, okay. And you'll tell people that, and they'll blatantly tell you, well, I don't think that they do have that right. Where do you want those people to go?
I agree 100%. I don't
agree
think
too.
you can be, oh, I love Jews, but I'm an anti-Zionist. No, if you're anti-Zionist, you
that is the
are an
biggest
anti-Semite. Yeah, you're anti-Semitic, which is, as our friend Elliot Fladen
Oh my God.
up in Denver. We love Elliot, man. We love Elliot, but and he's fun to watch
a
at
character.
protests. He likes to go counter protest
He's great. yeah.
anti-Semitic protesters. But
Mhm.
as he points out, it's really it is a form of racism. I don't know really how to define race. I like to think there is no such thing as racism because we're all of one race, all human beings. I don't consider myself a different race than a black person. But that's not conventional wisdom. In society, in today's culture, we divide people by what we call race. So whatever the definition of race is, I guess if you're anti-Jewish, that's a form of racism.
Mhm.
And so that's what Elliot likes to do. He likes to get out there and call these people racist. And so you go to these far left hateful rallies that are constant. We can find one every day in Colorado. And I talked to a number of them. Well, we have it on video. I said, this is much like a Klan rally that I attended in Boulder in the 1990s. There was a Klan rally held on the Pearl Street Mall in Boulder in 1993, I believe it was.
How does that happen in Boulder?
Well, this is the thing. They don't see the resemblance. This guy says, if you think this looks like a Klan rally, you know, well, of course it looks like a Klan rally. You are here professing your hatred for a particular class of individuals based on their cultural, religious identity, because you want, from the river to the sea, you want Israel wiped out. You support people who want to wipe Israel off the map. How is that not like a Klan rally? In fact, I don't even know that Klan rallies ever advocated for the elimination of black people. Klan rallies are horrible and racist, and they want horrible things for black people and brown people and other minorities. Catholics, in fact, have always been a target of the Klan. But when you hold a rally, and I don't care if it's in the middle of Boulder where everybody supposedly loves everybody else, regardless of identity, and you want to wipe a country off the map, you are a racist. You are effectively participating in a Klan rally.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're protesting against this genocide in Gaza, what they perceive as a genocide. I perceive it differently. I just read this book called Hostage by one of the, I'll throw it up on the screen, but it's by one of the survivors that was taken captive on October 7th. And for 2 years, he was living under tunnels in Hamas captivity. And it's just so difficult for me to read that book and not think that, the Israeli government should use everything in their power to go after their captured citizens. And then to go to these rallies where we have, somebody saying that his white privilege will keep him free in Gaza. I'll show that clip too.
White privilege in Palestine would keep you safe.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I'm an American. I'm white. They're not gonna. Yeah.
But
Was that silly?
that was hilarious. But
Oh.
these people, I'm sorry, they're just uninformed and they don't even know what they mean when they say from the river to the sea. I think it honestly just sounds good to them and they feel powerful when they say it. But that is a chant for genocide. Israel is what is between the river and the sea.
That's exactly right. So if you wipe out what's between the river and the sea, you are wiping out an entire population of people who identify as one thing, that being Jewish, and most of Israel is composed of Jews. And when you want to wipe out that, I don't see how it's any different. It's almost more evil than a Klan rally.
Yeah, even if you believe that Israel came in 1948 and pushed people out of their homelands, and which it's much more complex and nuanced than that. Jewish people were pushed out of their homes too. I mean, it was just it was chaos. And
Does that mean even if you think that was a horrible wrong,
just two wrongs make a right,
Exactly. And I would like to know, I would like anyone to write in, if you're hearing this or watching this, write in and you tell me, find me the society on this earth, you got the whole planet to work with, that wasn't taken by the people who currently occupy it and run it and live there and identify as whatever, Italians, Nigerians, you name it. I don't care where you go, Mexicans. Everyone is living by the standard of these racist protesters. Everyone on the globe is living on stolen land. Yet somehow only some people should be punished for that. And that some people right now that's Jews. And forever throughout history, Jews have been persecuted this way, and I really don't know why. I don't understand it. But we've got, and I never thought I'd see the day that the youthful element of the conservative movement would be anti-Semitic, but we're seeing a lot of it.
Yeah. It's crazy how, we've got the return of communism. We've got the return of this Jew hatred, which really, I think the only difference between communism and Nazism is their hatred for the Jews, really. The communists, the Nazi party, the National German Socialist Party, took control of the means of production.
That's right.
They fought the commies because they were their political opponent, not because they didn't share. It was this horseshoe effect that we're seeing right now in Podcastistan, the other Middle East.
Yeah.
Where their ideologies are so extreme that they're matching up. They're hard to differentiate.
It's the horseshoe effect.
Yeah.
You come around so far, you're over here, you come down here, the middle, you keep going so far in one direction and you end up very close to each other. When you were very far apart, linear this way, but at the end, you're very close. That's what extremism leads to. Yeah. So I want to talk about conservative politics here in Colorado. Of course, the Republican Party has been a complete disaster now for years. You've got this guy elected as chairman of the Republican Party in Weld County. That's Greeley. That's where we have a major university. It's an urban rural county. It's a hugely important county to the state of Colorado because that's where most of the oil and gas production takes place, in Weld County. And this guy, Hunter Rivera, 24 years old, was the up-and-coming star in the Republican Party. He was one of them. Barbara Kirkmeyer was a big supporter of his. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert thought this guy was the future. And so anyway, he ends up going on to an internet forum and agreeing to show up at a particular location and pay to have sex with someone who was supposedly a 14-year-old girl who was working as a prostitute. So this guy agrees to pay her, and what turned out was this was a cop pretending to be a 14-year-old prostitute. So he shows up at the agreed to location with the cash in hand to have sex with the child and gets arrested. Now, of course, his political future, I don't think you overcome this in your lifetime. I hope not. I hope all Republicans would favor, if he is convicted of this, and these people who show up at sting operations like this, they usually have really conclusive evidence because they've been talking on the internet in writing as to what was going to take place and what intentions were. And he showed up there with cash. And if the Republican Party does not condemn this guy and ensure that he has no political future whatsoever, and condemn him unapologetically, without exception, I'll leave the party. The establishment has to have zero tolerance for this type of activity. I cannot believe that among the ranks of, well, even given the state of the the organized Republican Party in Colorado, I can't believe that Republicans were conned by somebody of this character, somebody with such low character that he would desire to pay to have sex with a child. Must have other character traits that should have been visible. Now, I don't blame anybody who admired him and thought he was the future for not knowing about this, but there had to be. Come on, I just can't imagine that there weren't signs that this guy had problems.
This guy kind of looked like a pedophile, honestly.
Did he? I don't know.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. But apparently there was some, George, you can look this up, but apparently there was some evidence that there were issues with him. I'm not sure exactly what they were, but this needs to be fully condemned by the by all mainstream high profile Republicans. The most important thing that the conservative movement can do is protect children. That is that should be our absolute highest priority. Anyone running for office, if they don't start with public safety for children, then I'm not interested. Start with that. I don't care who you are. If you're running for office and they say, why are you running for office? You better start with to improve public safety, and most importantly, for children. Colorado ought to be the safest state in the union for bringing up children, and it certainly is not that. U.S. News and World Report ranks us as having the second highest overdose rate for teenagers in the entire country. And of course, a state that was the first to legalize abortion, did so before Roe v. Wade, and is so adamantly and zealously in favor of abortion, advocates abortion. Of course, you're going to end up with a lot of disrespect for young life, and we're going to attract creeps to Colorado. Because we have rejected publicly rejected opportunities to strengthen penalties against people who harm children, like this creep, Hunter Rivera, who was running a major chapter of the Republican Party.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, because you can definitely get away with it here.
You're bringing a child into this state. The child is safe right now, but someday the child is going to be out there, on her own. Between now and then, something needs to be done to make this state safer. I'm worried about my grandchildren.
Yeah.
Listen,
We need
Yeah,
a Spencer
me
Pratt.
too.
We need somebody that's going to come in here and be no holds bar on crime, because right
Mhm.
now we let criminals walk. We let grandma sit in jail for 6 years on, you know, even,
right.
yeah. I mean, you could have claimed a insane thing on Tina Peters. You could let's take that angle where
yeah,
she was
not-
believing something that you all think that is crazy to believe in. So why not give her the benefit of the doubt and believe that she's crazy? But we let these sex traffickers go that are
We let
crazy.
10-year effort at so-called criminal justice reform, where we decriminalized everything, including the dealing of hard drugs that kill people. We let that get to the point where we now have a law, I think it was from 2024, that makes it very easy for any criminal defense attorney to keep a client from even being prosecuted for serious crimes if they can get a psychiatrist to declare that person mentally incapable of facing prosecution. If I were practicing law, that is what I would make myself an expert in that, so that any criminal I could keep out of prison. Anyone who had the money to pay me, I could keep out of prison by using that law. And why Tina Peters, who we all know was a completely nonviolent criminal, if she was a criminal, completely nonviolent, didn't need to be in a cage. Because, we should put people in cages if they threaten the lives of others, if they're going to hurt or kill other people. I mean, physically hurt and kill other people. That's what the cage is for. That's what prison is for. But you put Tina Peters behind bars, and you let lunatics who brazenly kill people intentionally, and you let them roam the streets. That's how crazy Colorado has become. Tina Peters is now out of prison, but why did someone? Well, she was actually, I believe, she was convicted before it became easy to have your client declared mentally incapable of facing trial, of facing prosecution of any kind. But certainly that could have and should have been attempted in her case.
Yeah, I mean, that was interesting. What's to keep a Saul Goodman from Better Call Saul from keeping a psychiatrist on his books that will pretty much just find anyone incapable of incompetent to stand trial?
Exactly. All you need, if you're a big time lawyer with a lot of money in the bank, or your firm has millions or tens of millions in the bank, yes, you can buy someone with the credentials to declare another person mentally incompetent. You can simply pay for it. And we're seeing that in Colorado. We're seeing violent people on the streets. And this is very personal to me, because I actually walked out of a King Soopers in Monument, Colorado, and there were cops all up and down the street outside of a McDonald's. And I wanted to know what went on. It looked like a major crime scene. Well, it was. Somebody had gotten in a tiff at the drive-thru and run over another person. And I believe he backed over that person and then took off.
Yeah.
Fled. That person is roaming free today as if nothing happened because of that law.
Yeah, they were deemed
incompetent.
Yeah.
So, it's just beyond belief. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about someone I know something about, and that is Graham Plattner. Graham's becoming a household name because he's running for the United States Senate in Maine. And
this is the guy with the Nazi tattoo, right?
this is the guy who used to have a Nazi tattoo.
I think he still has it.
He covered it because he wants to be a United States Senator.
Okay.
Yeah.
He got a tattoo over it.
Now, this guy put in writing a number of years ago that he went into the Marine Corps because he wanted adventure, and he wanted to kill some people. That was exact wording. I wanted to kill some people.
He was excited to go kill people.
Yeah, and he put it in writing. Now, I am in the unique position of knowing a little bit about Graham Plattner. I don't know much, but I'll tell you that I spent a lot of years in Washington, D.C., 3 blocks from a little pub that I loved going to. And I go there frequently now because I'm often in Washington because my wife runs an NGO out of Washington, D.C., and has to be there a lot. Sometimes I accompany her. But I lived 3 blocks from this place, and now we stay at a hotel that's 2 blocks from there, the Capitol Hill Hotel. I think it's about 2 or 3 blocks from there. But we've spent a lot of time in what's called the Tune Inn, and it's this great little pub on Capitol Hill on Penn Avenue in Washington, D.C. And Graham Plattner, not that long ago, as late as I think 2016, was a bartender there. Now, I was in Washington a lot in 2016 and leading up to 2016, the Trump election. And my wife was working to help get Trump elected at that time. And she had a lot of connections in the Trump administration, what was to be the Trump administration. So I spent a lot of time there. There was this bar I had been, and when I had lived there, I always liked to go into the Tune In because it was the kind of place where the bartender was always your friend. Perfect stranger, but if you're having a hard time with something, having a hard day, you go order a beer and talk to the bartender. They were always friendly, interesting people. Then there's this guy, and I didn't even really know his name, but once he became a subject of the news, he was on the news all the time suddenly because he's running for Senate, and he has this very strange background. I'm like, that's him. That's the bartender I used to avoid. He was such a negative, nasty person. If you ordered a beer and a cheeseburger, he would make sure you knew that he was put off by having to do this for you. His job. He would make sure you felt uncomfortable about it. If you tried to strike up a conversation, he was going to be a jackass. And so I took to poking my head in the door, and if it was just Graham behind the counter, I would step out and instead go next door to the Hawk and Dove, which is literally right next door. And I found myself doing this, and I thought, it's so sad. After all these years of going to the Tune In, since I turned 21 and could go into a pub, I've always loved the bartenders here. I've always loved being here, but this guy gives me the creeps. He scares me. I'm not comfortable there. And it is only recently that I realized that's the guy running to be a United States Senator in Maine. And so I've been studying up on him a little bit. He's, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. His dad was a Dartmouth educated lawyer. His mom put him in a very, very pricey, upscale school when he was a child. He got kicked out, and then he went in the Marine Corps because he wanted to kill people. And then he ends up working at the Tune In while going to George Washington University because he is because he comes from privilege. He was able to get into and pay for George Washington University, though he was also working as a bartender. He did not complete his studies at George Washington University. I don't care about that. I don't care what degree you have to be a politician. I don't think that has anything to do with anything. But I just know that this is a person of low character and who is not a friendly person. He was never friendly to me, and I was just a perfect stranger paying him money, and I tipped well. By the way, this is the guy who said that black people don't tip. That's crap. It's bull crap.
He said that?
He said that. That's one of that's
so this guy's just like a blatant racist
stupid.
Nazi. Like he has a Nazi tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
He's another bartender commie.
Yeah.
He's like AOC.
It's AOC 2.0. I'm telling you, we're going to go from being a bartender to being in Congress. And thoroughly unpleasant person. That's really all we didn't become friends where I can tell you details other than what, is now on the public record. But I know the feeling I had was so strong. It was so negative that I would go someplace else. And that had never happened to me at that establishment. And like I say, I still go there when I'm in DC, and I started going there when I turned 21 in the summer, one summer when I was in college doing an internship in Washington, DC. So that's a lot of years. That puts, that's like 40 some years I've been going to the Tune In, and I wouldn't go in if that guy was behind the bar. That's about all I got to say about Graham Plattner for what it's worth, but it seems to align with a lot of what's coming out publicly about him now. And the latest being that his wife told his campaign that he was basically sexting with other women. And apparently they have a good marriage. She defends him now, but she said that she just needed the campaign to know about that in case it came out, which it did. So I don't know. That's all I've got for now. Anyone, anything else you guys want to discuss before we wrap up on this beautiful day in June? All right.
Just say we've been going for a while. We've been off the air for a little while. So if you're listening to this, if you made it this far, thank you. Let us know how you feel about the new forum, the new podcast studio that we have.
We've got we had a great podcast studio. In fact, other professional podcasters who've been at it lots longer than we have, and we always remarked on how wonderful our podcast studio was. Well, this one's even better. It's bigger, it's better, and we're gonna do this from now on. We're gonna work together. This is a small part of my very large family who wants to work with me on this, and I absolutely am I'm blessed by this. I enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it. If you just want to, if you're driving and you're in traffic and you want to listen to a family discussion, you can tune in here anytime. We're going to keep going with this, and we're going to try to be coming out with a lot more content, more shows, and we're going to try to put them out on a routine basis. So, you can anticipate when to tune in and listen to us. And I hope you will subscribe and talk us up to other people. And let us know what you think. We want to put on a good show. Mostly we're doing this for fun. We enjoy the heck out of it, but we want to produce what you, the audience, wants to see and hear. So let us know. And thank you very much for tuning in.